Fox News alert for you now. President Trump is hitting back at the media's coverage over his growing war of words with the liberal House Democratic lawmakers known as the Squad. This as one of those members gets a hero's welcome in her district and promises supporters she won't back down against the president. This is Outnumbered, and I'm Melissa Francis. Here today, my partner, Harris Faulkner. Fox News Headlines 24/7 reporter Carly Shimkus, former Ohio Senate Democratic Minority Leader Capri Cafaro, and joining us on the couch, Guy Benson, Fox News contributor and host of the Guy Benson radio show, and he is outnumbered. I love having you here on a Friday because there's always a lot of news. Lots happens. We need you.
And we are very much in a Friday mood here on the couch. Yes. We were discussing cocktails just before we came on air.
We weren't.
Not drinking them yet, just discussing.
No, we were discussing making them.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, well, on that note, the battle goes on between President Trump and the Squad amid big questions about the political impact. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar returning to a cheering crowd in her home district of Minnesota yesterday. Listen. She then doubled down on her criticism of the president after calling him a, quote, fascist earlier in the day and vowed to remain a thorn in the president's side.
When I said I was the president's nightmare, well, you're watching it now. Because his nightmare is seeing a Somali immigrant refugee rise to Congress. The beautiful mosaic fabric of our country welcome someone like me as their member of Congress home to Minnesota. And we are going to continue to be a nightmare to this president because his policies are a nightmare to us.
President Trump today tweeting, quote, the fake news media became crazed over the chant "send her back" by a packed arena, but is totally calm and accepting of the most vile and disgusting statements made by the three radical left congresswomen. Mainstream media has either officially or unofficially become a part of the radical left Democrat Party. It is a sick partnership, so pathetic to watch. They even covered a tiny stage crowd as they greeted foul-mouthed Omar in Minnesota, a state which I will win in 2020 because they can't stand her and her hatred of our country. Is that it? You got to scroll up a little there. All right. I love the dramatic reading of the tweets. That's really something. What do you think, Guy?
This is a squabble that is not going away. It works politically for both sides.
For everybody.
Right? The squad loves hammering Trump, and Trump realizes tying them to the Democratic Party writ large beneficial to him. So I think we're going to be reading a lot more of these tweets from the president, seeing a lot more of these types of sound bites from the likes of Omar. I would just point out to her, and I think the "send her back" chant was terrible. I feel like some of the things that have been tweeted were totally inappropriate. For many Americans, their worst nightmare is not a woman of color or a Somali refugee coming to America and getting elected to Congress. Their worst nightmare are the disastrous policies that she supports and her bigotry, which I think is nightmarish for many Americans, particularly American Jews. So, I mean, she can cast herself as a hero. That works for her and her base. But what she and her team represent is something, I think, on a policy level, quite dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, and you talk about her bigotry because that's really where a lot of the irony lies, Capri, I would say, is in the sense that she's talking about the mosaic fabric. He doesn't like the beautiful mosaic fabric of our country and saying that he's a racist. Right. But she is the one, who has been quite outspoken in her anti-Semitism.
And I think this is where Democrats have lost a little bit of credibility here because they were not forceful enough when they had that resolution that was came about because of the anti-Semitic remarks from Representative Omar, and then they watered it down. And I've been very outspoken again about, my criticism of her anti-Semitic remarks. I've said so publicly here many times and on FoxNews.com and articles. But I think here is where I think President Trump is giving them ammunition. When he does things, when things like the "send her back" chant occurs or some of these tweets tweets, which have been, denounced, and he's also tried to distance himself from them. When those things happen, it gives the, quote, squad an opportunity to say, this isn't just about socialism versus capitalism or policy and ideology differences. This is about us versus them and the other versus, the rest of America. And I think that's what they're trying to do. I'm not saying that it's right, but I think that's what they're trying to convey.
Can I ask just a quick follow-up to that? Why is it that the so-called squad won't take a win? They could look at
because they love the camera.
Well, yes, but that's, a lot of people on Capitol Hill. But when you look at what happened yesterday with the president didn't just disavow the chant "send her back." He stepped it up a bit. Hogan Gidley was on, White House press corps was on with me after, again, doubling down on the stepping it up. And I think it is movement to hear the president and his team say, not only do we disavow that, but if and when it happens again, the president will work as hard as he can to tamp it down in real time.
And we'll have to wait and see if he does.
To tamp it down in real time. So my point is, this is an opportunity for those people who really say they care about the words he's using and not just the words they're spewing. Yeah. Catch the difference. For those people to say, you know what? Maybe we move the needle with him a little bit. Well, let's hold him accountable.
And we'll see if it happens again, what he does.
That
if he
then
does,
gets us into a less of a hate tone and more of a purpose tone and moves us forward. All of those issues that Melissa ticks off almost daily, so finely, and so rightly, are still sitting there to be talked about.
I want to piggyback off of Caprice, something you said. I don't think this was a good week for the president. 68% of Americans found his tweets to be offensive, according to a USA Today poll. 43% of Republicans found them to be offensive as well. The reason why President Trump, one of the reasons he's in office right now, is because of his pro-America message. But saying "send her back" is not pro-America. And what it really did, and this is sort of what you were saying, is that it gave Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar opportunities to say why they like America. When Ocasio-Cortez talked about the story of her going to Washington, D.C.
So let me get this straight. They couldn't have done that on their own?
Well, it gave them...
They don't love America enough to do it on their own?
And I'm not
That's a fair question.
It gave them an opportunity with that press conference to focus on that.
Okay.
And it also...
Well, coming up with ideas for the border would be a way to show that you love the country.
Yeah. I'm not saying this has anything to do with their policy or how they actually feel about America, but this was a self-inflicted wound by the president, and he needs to be very careful about that.
Let's listen to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and what she said about this yesterday.
It's taken us 240 years for us to have this unique composite of a Congress in this moment, and we will not go back. We will not go back. We will go forward. But we sure as hell will not stand still.
When you listen to that, though, guys, so what has been set up here is very clear. It's the crystallization of what is coming down the road. And it's this choice between this group and this socialism on the left and the president and his policies. And in all of this, you're not hearing from any of the 2020 candidates. They're totally knocked out of the conversation. And I bet if you stop people on the street and you ask them who was running for president on the Democratic side, some people would say they are.
Right,
would be confused.
Yeah, she's not going to be on the ballot.
They would be confused. Yeah, no, obviously she's not the right age.
Not old enough.
But
That's true. But, I think what's interesting about this broader conversation and the debates now that we're having because of this feud back and forth, and you asked before, why can't they just take a win? It seemed like the squad might have the upper hand on the president, and then, like, the next day, Ilhan Omar comes out and says, I'm actually going to sponsor BDS, which is an anti-Semitic, fundamentally movement against Israel. And, I mean, it's been called anti-Semitic by Chuck Schumer. It was called hateful and dangerous by Nancy Pelosi. She comes out the next day and says, I'm going to be the lead sponsor.
But then those are the things that
constituents.
President Trump needs to be tweeting about
I agree.
rather than identity
Exactly,
issues.
yeah. And then it would be a major win for the president.
Representative Mark Walker, GOP member, said as much yesterday, and we saw movement from the president. My question is, what comes next for the squad? Because if I'm a Democrat at this point, what I'm saying is, wait a minute. Why is it just them against the president?
Right.
We've got 25 candidates or so. Is it 26 now? I'm joking.
340.
Yeah, we've got a lot of we've got north of 24 candidates running from our party and all of the rest of the Democrats on the Hill. But these are the four. So if you're a Democrat, I wonder if you're feeling like a little shut out, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
particularly if you're a moderate one, you feel left out in the cold right now.
Yeah. Joe Biden. Meanwhile, dueling narratives are emerging on President Trump's response to the furor over the "Send Her Back" chant at his North Carolina rally Wednesday night. Politico is writing that his disavowal of the chant is vintage Trump. Quote, President Donald Trump returned to a familiar tactic Thursday of blaming others for a problem many believed he created, tossing his own base under the bus to deflect outrage from GOP allies on Capitol Hill and beyond. It's throwback to a field-tested Trump playbook. Push the rhetoric further than some allies can handle, then tiptoe back to shrug off responsibility, end quote. But the Wall Street Journal editorial board asserts the president is sincere, writing Donald Trump rarely admits a mistake, much less an overstatement. So we'll take the regret he expressed Thursday at the chant of "Send Her Back" during his Wednesday rally as the normal equivalent of an apology. Let's hope his supporters get the message and that Mr. Trump stops egging them on. Here's the president yesterday with the comments that Politico and the Journal see a bit differently.
I was not happy when I heard that chant. What I would suggest, you go there, go to North Carolina, and you ask the people why did they say that. But that's what they said. That's what they do.
You'll stop them if they try to do it again.
Well, I didn't like that they did it, and I started speaking very quickly. I was not happy with it. I disagree with it. But again, I didn't say that. They did.
So I would just add that he did admit one other mistake, and he admitted it to me when I was in the White House. It was a mistake to hire Michael Cohen. He said it very clearly.
Yeah.
That was the first time that we all shook and said, wow, what did he say? Yeah, I mean, he acknowledged it. Now, we do know that some GOP members got together early yesterday morning, and that the White House did hear from some Republicans.
Yeah, so Capri and I were on your panel yesterday on OT.
As it was breaking.
As it broke. And as I said then, I think it's very good that the president did this. It was important for him to do it. He is the only person literally in the country with the power to put a stop to this type of stuff among his own supporters. Yep. He did make similar noises in 2016 over "Lock Her Up," that chant, which I think is not as bad nearly as
they live in a
"Send
different
Her Back." But he said this, he's like, oh, I didn't like it, I disagree, and then it went on. I hope that if this comes up again, which, you know, fingers crossed it will not come up again, but if it does, he will intervene personally to put an end to it. I just think that he did what he had to do yesterday, and hopefully will follow through moving forward.
But a lot of times people think he needs to come in and say sorry or walk things back or whatever it is, and he doesn't do it.
But he did it here.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I agree with the Wall Street Journal, where I think that it is the moral equivalent, basically, of an apology for him.
But can I
because he doesn't do that.
Point out that the apology was a good move, but he kind of took a step back a couple hours ago on Twitter when he said the tweet that you read in the intro. It's amazing how the fake news media became crazed over the chant "Send Her Back," but is totally calm and accepting of the most vile and disgusting statements made by the three radical left congresswomen. I know he's trying to make a comparison between how the media treats him versus Democrats, but saying the fake news media became crazed over the chant "Send Her Back" sort of implies that he doesn't understand why it was so bad.
Or I think even more so, I think that he's listening to someone, which is, I think, again, very rare. President Trump usually beats to his own drum. He must have, listened to someone who said, look, this is a bridge too far, and decided that he was going to walk it back. I do think that this was a calculated move, because I think if it was not a strategic move, he would have tweeted it out on the tarmac in North Carolina that he didn't like it, rather than wait another day.
Guy, I'm going to give you the last word.
You know, I think that we can criticize whether it took him too long or the tweet today. The point that he's making about the media, though, is absolutely true, right? There was an enormous amount of attention paid to chanting by some people at his rally, far more, I think, indignant and furious from the press than any of their coverage
I
of,
think
like,
it's irresponsible for him to keep tweeting about it and calling it crazed media attention when it's fair media attention, because that was wrong.
But the point that he's making is there's not similarly crazed attention paid to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib making bigoted remarks about Jewish people. That is a fair point and a fair criticism of a media that has not just its thumb on the scale, its entire arm is on the scale.
All right, I promised you last word. We'll move.